think that women just naturally, like, I know it's taboo to say, right? A lot of women want to date like men. A lot of women want to just sleep around and it's no big deal, but I don't think that we're wired that way. I think that when you sleep with somebody, certain neurons fire off in your brain that give you some sort of connection that I don't think men are capable of. Like, and I'm not saying that you should date like that. I'm just saying you are more prone to get your feelings hurt or more prone to put yourself in a vulnerable situation when you have sex with somebody.
Okay, and do you think that, so you think that applies more to women than men?
Yeah.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by Beducated.com. I learned a vulva massage technique from one of Beducated's instructors. When I tried it out, I watched her eyes go wide as she said, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" I guess the other guys she'd been with weren't Beducated. Up your love life for $10 a month with promo code MANWHORE at Beducated.com. Again, visit the link in the schnotes or use code MANWHORE at BEDUCATED.com.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Shout out to all the spankers, the wankers, and orgasm fakers. This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. This week's guest is a fellow comedian and podcaster, Kiki Andersen. We're going to get to her. I'll just say briefly, Man Whore Con, look, don't miss it. And no, you can't just come hang out at like the after party. You can't be like, "Hey, Billy, what's the address of the after party? I'll throw you some money for that." No. You need a weekend pass if you want to join the festivities. So click the link in the schnotes, get your weekend pass. I will see you August 3rd through August 6th. And the naked comedy shows do return to Hacienda, the sexiest basement in Bushwick. July 28th, we have got 8 and 10 o'clock shows, 2 distinct lineups. We're even offering discounted tickets if you want to stay for both shows. Hang out all night. BYOB, pants optional. Link, you know where I stuck it. I did have quite the lesbian adventure. Thursday night, a new friend of mine hits me up and was like nervously asking if I would go to a lesbian bar with her. And I'm like, yeah. And she said, "Really? What? Yeah, I'm not into watching hot chicks grind and make out with each other and alcohol. Like, separately love those things, together amazinger things. Why are we surprised? Yes, of course I'll go to a lesbian bar with you." Are there truly non-gay men who don't want to go with you to a lesbian bar? Anyways, we go. I put on my queerest, finest. I put on my lesbian shirt that I got from Megan in the breakup because it's got like sketches of like nude ladies on it, but like in an artistic kind of gay way. I put my glitter on. We rolled out the cubby hole, and it was funny because my friend kept saying like, "Billy, you have to stop making me laugh. People are gonna think I'm straight." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't get on stage tonight, but I did crush." That was really all I needed. I just needed like to make my friend laugh so hard she was worried no woman would make out with her. Of course, she flocked around, and I just kind of hung out and observed the cool ass ceiling. Drank my Dyke beer. That's what it's called. That's the brand name. It's called Dyke beer. Don't tweet at me. One married bisexual fella just really kept hammering it home to me that he wanted to ask if there was any wiggle room about me with him, and kept being like, "Wait, but like straight?" And then it would be like, "But straight? Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say you were straight earlier?" But I'm trying to just engage a friendly conversation. I'm very curious about his situation. Like, he's got a wife. They kind of have this like open-ish relationship. Create some space for him to like play with dudes safely, whatever. But just he kept coming back like 100% straight. Like there's no, and I'm like, my feelings were hurt because I said no for the 5th time, and he just got up. I'm like, whoa, you don't want to hang out? I am trying to make male friends. I'm sorry you can't touch my penis, but okay. My friend ends up hooking up with this one like big butch chick who looks like like a young Tony Soprano, but like the woman version, because she's got like the open button-down shirt with the white tee underneath. She's the big kind of butch who looks like she can just destroy women with thrusts, right? Like so much thigh and ass that you and wide hip that you're just like, oh, she could cause damage with a strap. My friend gets her number, whatever. But then apparently she went to a strip club. We gotta chase her to the strip club. I told you I went on a lesbian adventure. My friend gets us a cab to Sapphires in Times Square. We get there. Turns out it's the wrong Sapphires. So now we gotta go take a cab to a different strip club at a different part of town. We get there. We say Dominic's name. We don't know Dominic, but we say Dominic's name. And the guy's like, oh, we love Dominic. Let me let you in for free. I was like, okay, here's your free drink ticket. All right. Thank you, Dominic. You know, the bi guy at the bar did not offer me free admission and free drink anywhere. So I'm just saying, if he's trying to earn some wiggle room, Dominic's already doing a better job, and I've never met the man. And the big butch orders the two of them a lap dance and like asks me very politely, but it does ask me to, quote, fuck off a bit. And I do. I go get an overpriced Bud Light and I fuck off. 5 minutes later, she comes back to me. She don't got the money for the lap dance. She didn't know it was going to be that expensive. She's trying to ask me, a stranger, to front $120 plus tip for a lap dance so she could try to fuck my friend. I'm like, good luck with that, bro. And then, you know, my friend ends up paying for it anyway, gets us all McDonald's and gets us all a car back to Bushwick, where she then like proceeds to get strap fucked by this lady till 5 a.m. Good for her. I got home, nice and toasty, watched an episode of the morning show, and called it an evening. I have not been on an adventure like that in a minute. But of course, starting at one of my faves, Cubby. Before I get to my guest this week, Kiki Andersen, let's do a quick fan whore appreciation moment, okay? This is the part of the podcast where I like to give a shout out to one of my fan whores on Patreon. Just one, not all of them. Very unlike the impersonal Patreon thank you roll call, which, wow. If you were a person who did not enjoy that, I am so sorry. I'm listening to these old intros now, and they took up a lot of time. So I'll try to keep this brief. I want to give a thank you right now to someone who chooses to go by Photo Girl. I have seen a lot of usernames come through on the Patreon. Never has any of them come with a directive to shut the fuck up, but it's probably good advice for me. Photo Girl, I will try to a bit, but first allow me to say thank you for supporting the Man Whore Podcast on Patreon. And you too can become a member, support the pod, join us for hot movie night tomorrow night, Thursday, for as little as $2 per month. Or you can be like Photo Girl, sign up for a whole year upfront, get a discount. Become a member today, support the pod you love at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast, or download the Patreon app, find me on there. Kiki Andersen is an LA-based stand-up comedian. She used to be an on-camera local news reporter. And now she is a fellow sex podcaster with her new show, Indecent, with Kiki Andersen. Kiki does seem to come from a more traditional-minded, or maybe traditional is not the right word, mainstream. A little bit more of a mainstream, more of a vanilla-y space when it comes to sexuality or sex positivity. And so there's definitely moments you're going to sense where you can feel me reacting. I think I did intrigue her into doing an episode about polyamory. Hope she does. This is me and Kiki. Educate.com is like the Netflix for adult sex ed, not just because it's got over 100 courses available to you with some of the leading sex educators in the biz, but also because like these are videos, and these are videos that very often show you the real deal. It's not always diagrams and pussy puppets. And Beducated's courses go beyond technique. They also go into the mindfulness and the stuff going on in your brain, arguably your biggest erogenous zone. And you can get 50% off the yearly pass with coupon code MANWHORE when you sign up at beducated.com. You're going to want to take these classes all year round. Like right now, you might want to learn some breathing techniques to prolong your ejaculation. But, 6 months from now, you might need to learn some rope knots. Take a rope course. It's a good thing you got 50% off that yearly pass, right? Invest in your love life and join Beducated now for just $10 per month. Click the link in the notes or use promo code MANWHORE at beducated.com. That's BEDUCATED.com. Beducated. Because it's like educated, but, with boning.
Hinge, actually, which was very off-brand for me. I really don't like dating apps. And I'm very cynical about them, but this it's worked out so far, so.
What made you actually bite the bullet to get onto the Hinge?
I mean, I've been on it, but it's just like, it's been a parade of horrors.
Okay.
It's been so bad. I've never had like a good app. Oh, sorry. I've never had like a good app experience. I feel like I've just gone out with monster after monster after monster.
But is that apps or is that just like LA dating?
Well, I don't really know because the people that I dated in other cities, I've moved around a lot. I met organically. So I don't know if the apps were horrible there too. I guess this is the most invested I've been in apps is being in LA, but where one starts and one ends, I don't know. I imagine dating in LA in general is just terrible. A lot of cities ship their trash to LA is how I feel about it. Like, I think that there's a lot of small people floating around in LA that have very fragile ego. I mean, we all have fragile egos, but some of us have done the work to heal and, live full lives. Sure. For other people, LA is just a factory town. You just clock in and you clock out when you go to sleep, but you're not really worried about any other aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm. But what are some of these these LA monsters, these online monsters you've dated? And then I'll sit here and judge and be like, you being a little harsh on these guys? Stranger I just met?
Okay, one of them...
You'd be like, hi, why don't you just open up and I'll tell you if you were emotionally valid.
Okay, fair. I think one of them is not even debatable, but I think the other one has actually had a lot of debate amongst me and my friends, and there's two schools of thought on it, so I'll give you the first one. He didn't tell me he was married.
Usually bad.
Usually bad. On the third date, he was like, why don't you come to my place and I'll cook for you? And I was like, that sounds super nice. And I realized that we had never come up where he lived or who he lived with. Okay. And he was like, oh, well, I live with my wife. And I was like, that's a first date conversation. He's like, well, I'm ethically non-monogamous. Sure. I'm like, you missed the ethical part, right. You motherfucker.
Well, it's like, I'm glad you two have had conversations about this, but we should have a conversation too.
Right.
All the others should also know what's going on.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know. It felt like, assault's not the right word, but it felt like creepy, like you sprung something on me.
I understand springing in a moment. I think it's best to just have that up front, right? I don't want anyone I match with to even not know, right? So if I have a girlfriend, I'll put that in the bio. Mm-hmm. Some people like to roll it out in after they see if there's chemistry. Whatever's clever, but if you're going to invite them to your home for the first date, you should explain why.
Yeah, are these tampons for your dick? Who are these for?
Yeah, exactly. But that's less monstrous, I think, than if he was cheating on the wife and then you find out that there's a wife.
I guess that's what I mean by monster is just people that are just lack awareness. Sure. To me, that's monstrous. It's how can you volunteer a piece of yourself when you're not even aware of your own tendencies and your own, I don't know, your own weird. You gotta be aware of your own weird, right? That's a weird fucking thing to do.
Yeah. I don't always know what my weird is. And so that's why I try to rely on people I date or I'm close friends with to be like, no, tell me the things. And if I want to change it, I can. Or if I'm going to be like, no, that's part of me. But at least then I know.
Yeah.
So I know I have to probably explain it later to others.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just think that's how humans are. It's am I different?
Yeah.
Probably. And then what's this other more ambiguous one about?
Okay. So this one, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about it. I stand by mine. This guy and I connected on a dating app, and he, leading up to the date, was a lot more into it than me. Like, I was like, why is this guy like blowing up my phone? This is crazy. But I was like kind of like feeling the attention, you know? I had just come off of like another shitty string of dates. I was like, oh, I'm into this. Like,
You're not normally a big texter?
no. And I usually don't like too much attention up front before we've even gone on a date, because it feels like almost like love bombing. I'm like, what's your deal? You don't know me.
Okay.
So it's leading up to the date. St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and we had dinner plans. And I was like, well, dinner plans are nice, but it's St. Patrick's Day. Let's go out.
Yeah.
Sounds fun. A casual date sounds fun. And he's like, well, actually, some of my friends are going out for St. Patrick's Day. Let's all go out together. I'm like, okay, meeting your friends on the first date, a little weird, but it could be fun. So we all go out together. We have fun. We get pretty drunk. We end up hooking up. Was not the plan, but we were vibing. Like, we were connecting and we were having a lot of fun. The next morning, I leave his place, and like an hour later, I just had this like witchy instinct to check the dating app again. And I look on his profile, and he's changed it to be a picture from our date. An hour after I left his place. I'm like, you didn't even change the bed sheets, you sicko. And what was even weirder about it is we were texting, and because it was a picture of him doing a thumbs up. So he sends me the picture in response to something I said. I'm like, wait a second, is that picture from last night? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and it's on your profile? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a great thumbs up photo. You know, dating apps, you know what's hot? You with a stupid thumbs up and a smile. Let's just forget how like this is like in relationship to you. How about just like analyzing his profile? It sounds like a dumb photo.
Yeah, it really is. And in retrospect, I contacted one of my guy friends from back home because I was so pissed about this situation. And so he's like, let me see this guy's profile. So I sent him his Instagram, and he's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. This is a himbo. He's got pictures of him shirtless under a waterfall. What did you think was going to happen? I'm like, all right, fine. I guess I was being a little horny. But I don't know. Some people are like, well, what's the problem? He wasn't going to be your boyfriend. And I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is like the bed's not even cold. Like, you have a problem. Like, give it a day. Give it 3 hours. Not literally the second I leave your apartment, you jump on the app to find your next, your next thing.
Well, there's a lot of people who want to go like, well, this thing is like, you're a monster, or it's clear, but something like that is in this realm of like, look, no one thinks you should like lose your life over this, but it smells a little, it's uncomfy.
Yeah.
At minimum. But like, I wouldn't call anyone like a monster over it.
Okay,
that's
fair.
probably why. But that's probably why you're getting mixed reviews from your friends, because it's probably anywhere from like, that dude's crazy to like, eh.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. I guess that's on the
Doesn't make you
spectrum
wrong.
of crazy. It's probably not the worst thing.
No.
Maybe monster's the wrong word.
But that's like a guy who doesn't have that's someone without the awareness you would probably want in a relationship. So you not continuing to date him is still correct. Yeah. But it's not like I would say it's not like you would you should warn your friends about him type of a thing.
To me, it was just a big ick. That's what it was. A big ick.
Yeah. Big icks are not criminal, but like, I feel like people in this day and age of the way we talk about relationships, I mean, off mic, you like mentioned the Jonah Hill stuff, right? There's a difference. There's things where you should like, you need to tell your friends who might date this person, look, this was my experience. I just want to let you know, stay safe. Yeah. And then there's stuff where it's like big icks, and like, everyone got big icks. Do you have big icks? Is there anything about you? Like, where have you lacked self-awareness?
I do appreciate people that talk in like ludicrous extremes, though. Like, that is such a crazy thing to say to somebody. I'm like, all right, you have a way with words, you know?
There's something about the current society and culture and discourse that does like to lean into the extremities. And I feel like we've lost a whole lot of nuance. I feel like we've lost the ability to talk about someone's big yick without it being like an oh my God. It's like I hear people use the terminology of assault to describe very non-assaulty things,
which I did earlier.
No, which is fine. I don't know. Like, I'm not here to police you. It's just something I observe with the discourse. And I feel like it creates a lot of ambiguity and confusion. Yeah. And then I don't know what we're talking about. And like, I know the way, like if someone's talking about like a predator in comedy, but like I'm trying to find out what the behavior
the degree
was.
of predatorness. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, I don't know who I'm supposed to not work with or not. It's like, yeah, obviously someone who's like assaulting people. But when they use assault language to describe a big yick or
Yeah.
just shittiness.
Yeah.
I'm like, then it I don't know. It confuses my brain the way I process stuff.
Well, and it doesn't serve people that have been like legitimately like harmed, you know.
But it's fun to talk that way.
Yeah, it is fun. We're
to be
comics.
like monster angel.
Yeah.
What are some of your big yicks? What would
Like that I would give to other people.
Yeah, not something where they have to warn everyone about Kiki, but like they might be on a podcast and be like, this chick.
I think I'm Jewish, Latina. Like I grew up very, like, feelings are always on the table. Everybody always tells you how they feel. And I think probably in my earlier years of dating, I was very openly vulnerable with people very soon. Mm-hmm. So people that dated me in high school or in college maybe were turned off by that. But I think that created a lot of dating like trauma for me. Like a lot, maybe scared people away, that now I'm an incredibly closed off person. And I think it's pretty hard to get to know me, actually. So there's probably a lot of people that I've dated that like maybe I didn't even make an impression on them just because I wasn't willing to share.
One extreme to another.
Yeah.
What kind of oversharing were you when you were younger?
Just like being open about how you feel about something. Like,
Sure.
Oh, I'm really into you, or I'm really enjoying this date, or like, oh, I'd really like to keep seeing you. Like, not everybody takes well to that right away, which is also, some men are small and they like can't handle feelings, but also you have to be able to like temper your excitement about things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really see value in that. And also, like you mentioned, like connecting physically too. Like I was a big slut growing up.
Okay.
I was a slut in high school, and I had to go through that phase to become the person that I am today. But I think that there is value in waiting to connect with people physically. Like I've learned that in my older adult years, not because there's a stigma on women sleeping with people on first dates, but because you need to temper your feelings and your connection and, really suss people out before you give them everything you got,
Oh, so is the sex the everything you got part?
I think for a lot of people it is, unfortunately.
Okay.
Like not everybody's on the same page about it.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think has caused that for you?
What do you mean?
Like, why is sex this everything you got, like that last bit of everything to give somebody, the reason why you want to wait to connect with someone physically?
Well, that's the thing is I don't really see it that way. Is like I used to not have a problem with sleeping with people on the first date because I'm like, well, we got it out of the way. What's the rest of you,
Yeah.
But I realize that for a lot of people, that's the constant question on their mind is, well, are we going to sleep together? Are we going to sleep together? Are we going to sleep together? And then you do, and then there's nothing left for them. It's like, well, we're done here,
Sure. But then, what's the problem with like, why is it better for that? Well, at least we didn't fuck.
I think that women just naturally, like I know it's taboo to say, right? A lot of women want to date like men. A lot of women want to just sleep around and it's no big deal. But I don't think that we're wired that way. I think that when you sleep with somebody, certain neurons fire off in your brain that give you some sort of connection that I don't think men are capable of. Like, and I'm not saying that you should date like that. I'm just saying you are more prone to get your feelings hurt or more prone to put yourself in a vulnerable situation when you have sex with somebody.
Okay. And do you think that, so you think that applies more to women than men?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Because like, I definitely relate to that. When I am emotionally connected to somebody, actually, no, I would say like, I just kind of, they're kind of separate for me, but I do think there are a lot more men who feel that way who don't express it because they don't think they're supposed to. I usually just try to avoid the whole like date like a woman, date like a man concept. Right.
That's a stupid binary that many people still go by.
Sure.
I've had plenty.
As the host of a new sex podcast, Indecent with Kiki Andersen, how do you marry what you already said is like a taboo point of view in the sex positive realm, while also now hosting this new like sex positive show that takes on topics like sex work and porn and what was the new sex and religion. How do you marry those two?
I think that being aware of the taboos and being able to temper how they affect your everyday behavior is important, but also realize that we are we are all prisoners of this society and prisoners to like, you know, the way other people's expectations are, whether that we're talking about capitalism or we're talking about sex or we're talking about gender roles. It is the society we're operating in, right? Otherwise, like the stock market, you know, when it crashes, we would just be like, never mind, right?
Okay.
But unfortunately, we decided there's a stock market and we all have to fucking abide by it.
I think the poly people would tell you we're trying to restructure the options in the stock market. We're trying to reform the stock market. We're trying to say like, hey, the stock market doesn't only have to work this way. You can have some options and derivatives. I mean, if I want to stay in the evil construct of this metaphor of the stock market, hey, it doesn't just have to be stocks and bonds. We could also have these. We could have these. You can do stuff. We could do reverse mortgage swaps. I'm sure this won't burn down the entire system.
Totally. But I do think like polyamory, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings with this because I respect any kind of love that you want to do as long as it's legal and consensual. But I think being poly right now is a little like crypto.
Okay.
Right? Like, we're not really sure what it means yet. We're not really sure how to use it yet. Some people make it their whole brand, you know? And I think that alone turns some people off because it's like, well, why does that have to be your whole personality?
Sure. Yeah, just like someone who's like really into like D&D or, I don't know, makeup, whatever it is. Yeah, some people make one thing their whole personality. I think we always can see that.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of people who know how non-monogamy works. If you mean we, the society, yeah, but that's just because it's new, right? It's new and we don't, it's messing with a paradigm that's been in place for, you know, a few hundred years.
Same with crypto. And there are people that got very rich off crypto and they're very happy. So
yeah. And so it's like, I mean, I'm not a crypto guy. I'm not, you know, I dabbled with it for a year and a half the way some people dabbled with, you know, like maybe I will try dick for this year of college, right? I dabbled with the crypto. I had my heart broken. But, you know, it's also because like I didn't know how it worked and I didn't know who to look to. And you know, there's no centralized clear definition of what to do. And that's kind of like that in the non-monogamy space.
Yeah. I guess what getting back to what we were originally talking about with like vulnerability and sex and like all these paradigms, like I guess I realized that I was behaving a certain way in my dating life that just wasn't working for me.
Sure.
And for me, like sleeping with people too soon or opening up to them too soon was putting me specifically in a path that was causing me a lot of pain. And not everybody has to operate under that notion.
Right.
But, you know, this guy that I'm seeing now, I'm not saying that we worked because I waited to have sex with him. I'm just saying we built the relationship that we're in right now off of like other things first, like just like really casual, really getting to know each other, like really sussing each other out. And so far it's been going well, you know? So I think just really being aware of your own icks.
Yes.
And maybe that's an ick. That's my ick that icks me out, you know? Maybe it doesn't ick other people. I have no idea. I have no idea what my exes would say about me.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, let me recommend doing a podcast like me or Corinne and Christina have done or Nicole Byer, and you just call them all up and be like, hey, come get on a mic and see how many are not excited to do it.
Yeah.
And so there's a fresh relationship, pretty new, pretty young. It's about a month old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the early things you look for when dating somebody to see if you want to keep dating them? What are you looking out for?
Honestly, I feel like I've dated every kind of person. There's nothing that I was looking for specifically. Like I always thought I wanted to date like a really like funny artistic guy. I dated a lot of comedians. I am a comedian. That was a no-no and we'll never go back.
Okay.
So now, I don't know, I guess I was just looking for somebody who's just a good friend, you know? And I felt like with the guy I'm seeing now...
Like a nice, boring, good, not funny, good friend.
No, that's not what I said. No, but what was the green flag that I wasn't even looking for was he took genuine interest in like what I do. He without asking me, he just like found my podcast and listened to it and was like, oh, you said this thing. I wanted to like talk to you more about that. And it not that feeds like some like narcissistic part of my comedy career. It was just the fact that he took the time, you know, I'm like, wow. Or even like basic things like, oh my God, he walked on the street side of the sidewalk. Like I forgot people do that because I live in LA where people don't have manners. Like,
and when he talks to you about like what he heard on the podcast, like, and how does that conversation sound?
what do you mean?
As in, like, did he say like, so I heard this thing on the podcast. Now I'm going to talk at you about the thing I heard you talk about on the podcast, and maybe even tell you why you're a little bit wrong, because like obviously I know about 7 seconds worth of this subject matter. Let me talk to you like an expert. You know, the way some dudes talk about crypto.
Like a spin-off pod.
Just like the idea of I like what you're saying in that he's taking genuine interest in you, but then he doesn't use that as a means to then talk about. I think a lot of guys on a date, they will, when they do ask you a question, I hear, it's then there's a pathway. I mean, a lot of people do this. They ask a question, but it's really a pathway in to tell their story about this subject matter that they like, I have a good story about this. So I'm going to ask them this thing. I don't really even care what their answer is. But once they're done speaking on it, then that's my in. Instead of just like sharing this interesting story or asking a question to learn about them. Some people will ask, especially guys I hear, will ask a question as a means to eventually talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like he hit you up to be like, I heard you do that episode about porn, and let me tell you why you were actually kind of a little wrong about your take on porn, and I don't even really care what your rebuttal is.
Yeah, that's definitely not him at all. I mean,
you get an idea what I'm describing?
Yeah, totally. Being a female comic, I feel like anything that men ask me about myself is usually an opportunity to find ways to make themselves shine, because I do think that men feel dwarfed by female comedians for whatever reason. Not all men, many men. Yeah.
Basically, if you're a guy, as many people will allude to, if you're a guy who tensed up at that moment, it actually might be about you.
Right. Yeah, it's like, oh no, a woman with opinions who like gets attention for being on stage. How can I shine in this moment? What can I say that'll make me sound funny or special? It's like, that's not what it's about. I was just telling you about my job. You know, this is what I do. This is my dream. You can tell me about your dream if you'd like now.
Yeah, me existing doing this thing shouldn't have to automatically be a threat to you.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. I just want guys to really solidify, by the way, if you're listening, dudes who date women, just give a shit.
Yeah.
Don't ask because you're like, I should have to ask. I think I was telling you before off mic, it was like they want to know, and they want an answer like, oh, if I ask her 7 questions about herself, I've fulfilled my obligation. I've done the secret rule to get women interested in me. It's rather, no, it's just sincerely give a shit.
Yeah, but I think that
because then you'll naturally ask questions if you give a shit.
Totally. And you'll find things to connect on and find things that you'll like about this person. I think a lot of people have maybe heard that saying and have trained themselves to like feign interest and ask the right questions because it's the right thing to do. But I think it's important to do self-work and genuinely be curious about other people and not be self-obsessed, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you live in LA, especially if you're a comedian or an actor or whatever the fuck. We're all self-obsessed. We think about our careers from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep.
Yeah.
You have to be able to give your brain a rest to think about the world outside of you so that you can be a better comedian, so that you can be a better actor, so that you can be a better partner. And I don't think a lot of people do that work. You have to be curious about other people.
Yeah. So again, So what other green flags?
Well, I think that was a really big one. You know, he's not in the industry. He's a nonprofit. He
doesn't do
guy.
improv.
No,
Okay.
He doesn't do improv. His friends love him. Like he's been, what do you call it? Like not a minister, like the guy who is ordained for the wedding.
Yeah, he's a ordained minister. Yeah.
But yeah, not like a religious guy, like a, what do you call him? Officiant.
Officiant, yes, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's a green flag. Like his friends trust him. Like
I think ordained minister like gives out the wine at mass. I think that's what my mom was.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, you get the cool mom. She's got the wine.
Oh, yeah, boozing up, breaking the glass ceiling in church. Love that.
So he's married a bunch of his friends, it sounds
yeah,
like.
which, that's a big role in a wedding. I feel like that's a green flag. Like your friends trust you. They like gave you a big role in the biggest day of their life.
Is it a red flag if at 34 I've only been to 2 non-family member weddings?
No, I don't think that's a red flag. Oh, it's just people in your life are maybe getting married right now. I don't know.
Oh, no, I know a lot of people who get married.
Okay, maybe we gotta talk about that. Let's dive deep.
I'm really emphasizing the invitation part of this.
Listen, weddings are expensive, okay? It's cutthroat out here with weddings. I think in the last year, all my best friends have gotten married, and I think there's like 2 more left.
Okay.
And that's probably all the weddings I'll go to in my life. Like, I don't think I'll get invited to weddings beyond that.
Okay. So sincere curiosity and interest in you seems to be a good friend.
Yeah.
You know, what else do you look out for, or are you still maybe looking out for?
I was saying earlier that I feel like in earlier relationships in my life, I gave like too much of myself too fast, whether that's physically, emotionally, whatever. And that's put me in situations where maybe I didn't hear back from the guy and I didn't understand why, or I thought things were going a certain way and the guy turned out to be a different kind of person, you know, because maybe I made up a story in my head that they were going to be the right guy. There's no ambiguity with this guy I'm seeing. He told me that he wanted to see me on the first date. He was like, I'd like to see you again. I'm like, oh, that's really nice. Like, thank you for telling me exactly what it is. And that's not like an overshare, and it's not like too mushy or like too much too fast. It's just, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going to happen next. Like, no breadcrumbing. No, is he going to call? Like,
is it really that uncommon for someone to like not say at the end they want to see you again?
well, I think that maybe they'll say that, and then it's the breadcrumbing, you know? It's the, oh, well, this guy hasn't texted in a few days.
So
you know?
they say that, but then there's never this like, okay, cool. Let's like, I mean, maybe not like right there on the date, but even just like a day or two later, there's no like, hey, so like, let's set another date.
Yeah.
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 There's some decisiveness with this guy.
Yeah, there's decisiveness and like not promise of a future. I don't want to say that, but like promise of like interest, you know, like promise of like, oh, this might be something, you know? I think there's so many people that feel like it might be something, but then they're always looking over your shoulder. Well, is there something else? Is there somebody else on Hinge? Is there somebody else at this restaurant?
See, I just like to date, like, I end up dating a lot of queer non-monogamous chicks where, like, when I look over her shoulder, I could be like, hey, you should look over your shoulder right now. Isn't that chick hot? And then we can both be like, yeah, no, she's got great tits together. And then it's a mutual interest we have.
Yes. I love that. You know, shared interests are really important.
But did y'all kiss at the end of the first date? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and now does that, to me, yes, I would want to hear the words like, I would like to see you again. Mm-hmm. But if those have not been said and we kiss at the end of the date and they have the right smile on their face afterwards, I usually take that as a sign went well.
Yeah. I think more often than not, I have good first dates. Mm-hmm. It's the second and third dates. It's like, oh, well, maybe on the second date I've slept with them. Now I really don't know if I'm ever going to hear from them again. Oh. And sometimes, you know what really bugs me, especially in LA, is there's been guys that I've dated, slept with, that I was like, you know what, I'm not even that interested in them. Maybe I won't call them back. But then they don't call me back. And I'm like, wait a second, I didn't want to date you first.
Right, that's okay. We don't have to be upset about that.
No.
No, you're like almost there of the not caring if somebody you don't care about is interested.
Yeah, no.
But that's still such a huge thing to be like, you know what, maybe I won't call them back and know that the last part is to not care about that last part of it. And no one should be upset about that. In fact, everyone should be happy because if someone you're not that excited about hits you up and you're like, maybe I'll give them another try. Well, great. Now you have another day, another time commitment, hanging out with someone you're not even that excited about, which is a waste of your time and sucks for them too.
Well, some things just fizzle out naturally, and I think that's great. I'm the kind of person to not, like, I don't ghost. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not my forever person. I'm sorry, I don't see us going anywhere. Like, great. I'm never going to talk to you again.
Bless you. Thank you for being like that.
Right. I love clarity. Clarity is really important to me. Yeah.
I've been hearing recently from a lot of like chicks who date dudes, decisiveness, that they're into that, right?
Yeah.
What's like the difference to you between like a guy being decisive and a guy, I don't, tell me if you can think of the better word for this, but like it's kind of pushy, aggressive, almost like dismissive of what your interest is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. What's the difference between a guy making decisive, mutually beneficial decisions and just kind of being like, this is what we're doing because this is what I want to do? Ooh, does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, I had a long-term relationship with a guy that always only planned dates that were things that he wanted to do, which usually I end up enjoying anyway. Okay.
But there was games.
What's that?
A lot of baseball games or something?
Thank God. Although he liked to go.
I don't know what kind of guy he was.
No.
I'd have to see one more Scarlet Witch cosplay.
Ooh, yeah, no, I just wouldn't go. Sure. No, I'm usually a pretty good sport about even things that I'm not interested in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had so many other great qualities that I was able to look past that one. But I did notice. Sure. I was like, we never do anything that I want to do. I do think that there is beauty in planning things for other people. Like, I know you like this band, or I know you like this restaurant, or you mentioned you love fucking sunflowers. Let's go to the sunflower park. Whatever.
There's a sunflower convention. Why? We don't know, but there is a sunflower convention, and I guess we could go.
Yeah. Thoughtfulness is important.
Yeah. But if one of your like buddies, if like you had a guy friend who like in this very rare moment decided he wanted to take stock in himself and decide how he can do better. I know I'm like, this is a fantasy, but play along. If he comes up to you, be like, I hear chicks dig decisiveness, but I don't want to be like the boyfriend you just described. What's kind of that fine line to you? If a guy's like trying to like recognizes himself, maybe I'm a little selfish planning dates. Besides just like automatically be like, oh, never mind. Yeah, sorry. Continue.
No,
Sometimes
that's a good question. I'm just thinking.
I know, but when I can tell someone like doesn't have the instant answer, which is not anyone's problem, silence is allowed in this world. I think still, it doesn't. Not everything has to be a jump cut. But I don't know. As someone who has interviewed people as well, I will sometimes overword the question as I try to repeat it. I'm like, as if I find a different combination of words, maybe I'll receive an answer faster, as opposed to just like letting you sit with the question.
Well, no, I definitely understand. I guess I'm trying to decide when it's a problem. Like, at what point does it become a problem, decisiveness? Like, if you're planning the second, third, even fourth date, and we're just doing things that you just planned without really asking my opinion, that's fine. It shows initiative. It shows that you're interested in me and you want to see me again, and you're going to take the problem of planning it off of my hands, which, like, honestly, I love. I'm very busy. I kind of like people to just tell me what to do. Especially on weekends, you know, like, I don't want to think about more plans. Like, I've already planned my whole week. But again, it's that thoughtfulness. It's that being curious about other people. At some point, you got to know where she likes to eat, right? You got to know what band she likes. You got to know these things. And if you're planning a date and you realize you don't have the answer to any of those questions, that's your problem. You haven't asked.
Yeah. And I would say, like, even the decisiveness in bed, I find also is like something people like, where there have been a lot of women who like, they like if I'm not asking, like, I'm putting you in this position, or I'm moving you here, or I'm like, I'm pulling your legs into whatever it is, like, that there's an excitement that, like, oh my God, I didn't have to make the decision of like what position we're doing, or what toy we have to grab, or just like, or which sex act are we like transitioning to. Sorry. Yeah. That's random. That like just, but in doing so, I find that there's a pressure of me making sure like I'm being decisive but not selfish. Yeah. And unfortunately in sex, a lot of times, like, things that feel selfish are actually the thing that they want. You know what I mean? Like, there are women who are like, I want to blow you more often, but it seems like a selfish notion to be like, I'm gonna like have you give me a head more. That feels selfish to think of.
There's room for both with sex, especially in the early stages. Like, a lot of women enjoy being manhandled and thrown around like a pizza. You know what I mean? A lot of women enjoy feeling like the girl, if we're going to talk in binaries here. But if you're going to make a spontaneous decision like that, something surprising, there's always, every woman appreciates, I think, a little, does this feel good? Do you like this? Should I do more of this? Or what do you want? You know, like, asking questions in bed is great.
Yeah. Verbally saying things is a good idea.
Yeah, don't be the silent person in bed. Those people are weird.
Yeah. So you have this new sex podcast. What is your interest in sex in the first place? Especially as someone who has been like, for the last half hour, been like, I actually am trying to pull back on banging people early. Yeah. So I don't think we would call you even right before this relationship. Like 2 months ago, it sounds like we wouldn't call you present day slutty.
No, I don't think, especially now that I'm in my 30s, I'm a reformed slut.
A reformed whore.
But I'm still, I'm a reformed whore, but definitely have the same attitudes about sex that I had before. Like, although I won't act a certain way anymore, I still feel the same way about sex. Okay. I feel like if you want to have sex, you should be able to have sex. That should be fair game for everybody. But you do have to realize the impact it's going to have on you mentally, spiritually, physically, and decide if having sex with this person at this time is going to have a negative or a positive impact on you, you know? I think I had like a really complicated relationship with sex growing up. I had a lot of abandonment trauma. I had deep self-hate for my body. And I've always been horny. Like, since I was born, I was a horny kid, which is the perfect recipe for a school slut.
Okay. You were
and
the stuffed animal humper?
yeah.
I didn't X like that. Like, she was like, when I was like 3, I would hump my bunny. And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, this is what I want. I knew I wanted to have sex when I was like 4, and I didn't know what sex was, but I just knew I wanted to have it. And I think that I had like a lot of slut shaming happen in high school, which like put all these weird ideas in my head about sex and like whether it should be secret or whether you should be open about it. And like, then you start judging other people for their level of like outward sexuality. And then you realize that that's your own weird repression because people have shamed you about your sexuality. Like all the things that you go through as a teenager and then into college, you know, that now I have made my peace with. I don't really care what people think about me sexually or my sex life.
Okay.
That's done. That's healed. Now the healing is how you act in your own sexual circumstances. That's where you have to decide who you are as a fully realized adult.
There's so I have a channel in the Discord server, the Champagne Room. Everyone, link in the notes if you want to come join us in there. But we have a Patreon only channel called Ask the Guest. Y'all ask me a question for the guests. I will ask them. So if it's a good question, wish it was mine. If it's a bad question, wasn't my idea. But like what we're talking about kind of feeds into what this one guy Chuck wanted to ask, which was like, how did you learn what was taboo growing up? And so I guess we'll say taboo sexually growing up. Like I said, it sounds like your mom's like sex positive, but there were like caveats.
How did I realize what was taboo growing up? Mm-hmm. Is that the question? I think like we were talking about earlier, just my mom gave me some very mixed signals about sexuality. It was, you can do whatever you want as long as nobody finds out about it. And to me, that was a very clear indicator that in the world, there are people that are going to judge you for your decisions. Not everybody's on the same page about your liberties and your rights. And so you do have to be careful about how you move through the world. I mean, be carefree, be authentic, be yourself, but be aware of what's out there. You know, we are all people operating in this society.
But doesn't like living that out there, even if it's going to invite negative reaction, is that not how we fight and change the culture?
Yeah, I think it is. But that's also, it's a risk, and you have to be aware that it's a risk. Like if you're out there parading and you're out there protesting, there is inherent danger and bravery and all these things that come with it. You know, you're not just out there willy-nilly. Like, when people are posting their opinions on Twitter, people are posting their opinions on Facebook, I don't think people realize like how big of an undertaking that is. Like, we're not going to change anything by doing that really, but you are marking yourself as, this is my stance on the world. This is how I show up in the world every day. And there are people that may rule you out because of that. And you have to be okay with that.
What type of things? Like
anything.
Sharing like their queerness or that they're poly or...
Yeah, but I mean, I think queer people especially are aware because they've probably faced a lot of rejection from the moment they were born. But if you are super sex positive on the internet, you know, there are people that are going to not wish you well because of that. And you will find out very quickly, you know. And I'm not saying they're right. They are absolutely wrong. But we are unfortunately living in this horrible society that you have to decide how you're going to fight every day. Yeah.
No, I find that, you know, I talk about sex for a living, and I definitely get that. And there have been opportunities like I had a buddy who they run a daily comedy show that's on a streaming platform. That would be like very nice to be on. I didn't ask to be on it, right? I didn't say nothing. I was just texting one of the guys just about something unrelated, but that had to do with the topic that they discuss. And out of nowhere, he's like, "Yeah, me and like we thought about maybe having you on." And then we were like, "Yeah, nah, we can't. He's too slutty or something." Legit just said I was too slutty to book on a comedy show thing. Because I was like, well, you know, I don't only talk about sex. Like, I think as we've seen during this conversation, I talk about dating and relationships too.
Yeah.
I don't have to say blowjob for like a really long extended period of time. So I was like, hey, I talk about love and gender and relationships as well. He's like, yeah, but could you survive a search with on exec? I'm like, I think I could.
But see, that's his weird taboo. Something about the way you show up in the world.
Him just asking, like, not pitching me to the exec and letting the exec decide, was scared to eat, won't even pitch me. because when you search me, yes, I'm like, I think tastefully sex positive stuff pops up, like this podcast, some of my writings for Mashable. But yeah, like I face that all the time. But what's my alternative? To not?
My mom was trying to explain to me that you should be whoever you want to be, but be aware of the taboos so that you can fight them and protect yourself, keep yourself safe. And make sure that you're not putting yourself in harm's way. Unless what you're doing is you're having a protest and throwing Molotov cocktails and that's what you want to do, whatever.
But a softer form of protest is just existing openly. Everyone knows more sex workers than they realize. They just don't know until that person has shared that openly. And when they see that someone who they otherwise view as a upstanding citizen and totally moral, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they come out like, I do some sex work. I do some OnlyFans, or I strip. Hey, you know me. I stripped my way through college. I wasn't immoral in college.
Yeah.
I stripped to pay for was over expensive education. Then they're like, it fucks with their head a bit. It makes them go, I thought they were all dirty, stupid whores, but Catherine's not stupid. She has a doctorate. Oh. And by doing that, if some people start finding out like they know a few more whores than they did before, that makes them change their view on that, which both changes how they treat people, some of their terminology that may be a bit whorephobic, and it might change like policy, like tangible policy proposals that they do or don't support.
Totally.
So I'm saying like, yeah, there's risk, and I think we should be taking that risk rather than hiding from it because like, well, you know, do it, but like hide it. I mean, maybe a privileged thing to say from like my point of view, but just, I don't think stuff changes if we hide our sexualities like that.
Yeah, no, I don't. Nobody should hide their sexuality. That, please, if you take anything away from this podcast, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying hide your sexuality or don't be yourself. What I'm trying to say is, we have to be aware of like the risks that are out there and who else is out there and that their opinions differ from ours so that we can challenge them, right? So that when you feel rejected, you can understand why you feel rejected, who's rejecting you, why they're rejecting you, so that you can be the truest form of yourself, right? Because when you realize that people are anti-abortion because they grew up in this weird religious cult that is somehow profiting off of all of us, then you can fight for abortion tomorrow, right? You can go to that protest. You can donate money. You can go get a fucking abortion and not think twice about it. But you can only get there when you realize why other people think it's a problem.
Do you find it risky to do the podcast that you're doing then? And or not even just is it? I'm just saying like, do you feel the risk that you might be taking?
I don't think I'm going to ever be like a target. You know, I don't think anybody's ever going to come after me for the things that I said. I think that it might change the way people that know me feel about me. You know, they listen to my podcast. I say cum and cock a lot.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. People might not like that. They might think I'm gross. But those things don't gross me out because I don't think they're that important. So that is how I show up in the world. That is the way I was raised. And that is true to who I am. And I think the only way we can take power away from those words and make them less weird is by saying them more. We all have sex. We're all sexual beings.
And Chuck also wanted to know, how do you think society should decide what is indecent?
How do I think society should decide what is indecent? I think the most important thing to any person that is alive on this planet is being able to live with dignity. And dignity means being able to have free, informed choice, sexually, monetarily, physically, spiritually, whatever. Being able to live, again, your true, authentic self, free from harm and free from economic, whatever. So I think that those when in a lot of the episodes that we do, what we realize is that there are people that are benefiting from letting these taboos thrive. There are people that are making money off of your anger. And so you have to be able to analyze who's trying to keep you mad and why.
Yeah. So we learned how you learned what is taboo, some mild kind of conflated nuance slut shaming with mom, right? And then you have this viewpoint that like people should have the sex that they want to have, free of criticism. And that, but you also acknowledge the reality that people are going to judge you based on sexual choices you make. Do you still catch yourself sometimes judging people for their sexual decisions?
Totally. It's interesting that you asked that. I recently,
I was just telling Veronica the other day, girl, you can't be okay.
That girl's. I called somebody a whore this morning. No. it was me in the mirror, but
that's a very brave sentence. Okay, no, sorry.
Listen, some people just are whores. No, I remembered that I wasn't like particularly nice to this girl that was in my sorority, and I like said something to her that wasn't very nice, and I emailed her. I looked her up and I emailed her. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry I said this thing to you 12 years ago. I just want you to know I don't feel that way anymore, and I hope you're happy. And she really appreciated it.
Yeah.
I wish people would write those emails to me, but that's probably
Alex
never going to
Bass,
happen.
Ryan Wiggers, Andrew Zahusky. I could do a nice long, if anybody, it's manwhorepod@gmail.com. If you have any apologies you want to send my way. I'm just going to, at the end of this episode, list all my childhood bullies and just see if any tune in. So no, what the hell did you say that stuck with you and what made you think of it all of a sudden? Is that who you called a whore this morning? Did you like, hey whore, my bad?
Hey whore, I mean Alex. No, I was just kidding about calling somebody a whore this morning. It was last night. I honestly don't think I didn't like call her a whore or say anything. It was something to do with our sorority, and she kept like posting like nudes of herself in our sorority's like Facebook group. Yeah, like as a joke. And at the time, I was really uncomfortable. I think I was uncomfortable with it because I was uncomfortable with another woman that was so proud of her sexuality and her body when I so deeply hated mine.
Okay.
But also, I was this is like, I was on my way to being a news reporter, you know? And like, I was terrified of like my reputation being affected by her choices. Like, we would get kicked off campus. We would be the slutty sorority. We would be this. And I was like, hey, you need to take this shit down. This is gross. Like, fuck this. And in retrospect, what a weird witch hunty fucking Handmaid's Tale imposition to put on another woman. If she wants to post news on the internet, that's her prerogative and not my fucking problem, you know, especially in the day and age of OnlyFans. But at the time it bothered me and I said something to her about it. And I think she actually ended up getting kicked out of our sorority, not related to me, for something totally different that she did. She was very out there sexually. Okay. But I think she thought it had common room. Probably. She was out there. Like, I mean, she had like all kinds of content on the internet, pre-OnlyFans and whatever. Which whatever, more power to her. But I think she thought that I had something to do with her being removed from the sorority, which I didn't. I was already graduated college. Like, I didn't give a shit about this girl. But I just wanted her to know that if like I caused her any shame, that I was sorry. Nobody should feel shame on account of another woman.
What made you think to email her all this time later?
I was thinking about like things people said to me that made me feel shame. And I was thinking if I had ever done that to somebody else. And I realized that I did. And I felt really bad about it.
It's very big of you.
Thanks, man.
Not a lot of people
I'm
do
absolved.
that.
I'm going straight to heaven now.
Yeah, I thought y'all didn't believe in heaven. Oh,
yeah, I don't know.
It's like there's no hell. I don't know.
Listen, I'm the best Jew, and by that I mean I'm a Jew that doesn't know anything about Judaism.
Doing great.
Yeah.
Kiki, where can people go to find you, follow you, and check out your show, Indecent?
Yes, our podcast is everywhere you get your podcasts, and we're on Instagram, Indecent Kiki, and then I'm on Instagram, it's Kiki Andersen, and Andersen is S-E-N.
Well, Kiki, thank you for coming by and chatting with us, and why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
The best place to discuss this week's show is in the episode discussion channel in the Champagne Room. The Champagne Room is our super free, super fun, super sex positive Discord server. It's not a Man Whore Podcast Discord server. It's a sex positive Discord server, but it's also the best place to chat about the show. You can also always email me your comments, your thoughts, your questions to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Patrons, you heard we have an Ask the Guest channel in the Champagne Room. It's just for you. You get to ask questions to all of my upcoming guests, and only you get to do it. You've also got the patron-only channel Porn Share. We're dropping porn gifts in there, links to some of our favorite porno videos. If you're ever looking for some inspiration when you're starting to flick the bean or lube up the pole, that's always a nice channel to pop in at. And tomorrow, Thursday at 9:30 p.m., it's movie night is coming back to the Champagne Room. We're gathering together for a group watch party of the 1981 classic porno Roommates. Roommates follows the trials and tribulations of three career-oriented women who share an apartment in New York. It looks like there's one who's an aspiring actress who's having sex with her drama teacher, classic. Fashion model with a bad coke habit, can't wait to see what happens there. And there's a third roommate who they don't tell us what she does, but I'm sure she's banging. So I hope you'll join us for that tomorrow. But to do so, two things. You need to be in the Discord server. Link in the schnotes. And you need to be a Patreon member. Link also in the schnotes. Sign up for both. Join us tomorrow night. I got to go babysit some singles at speed dating and tell some yucks downtown. But I hope you all stay safe, stay cool out there, stay dry if it's flooding, and always stay slutty. In the arms of the angel. Did you enjoy what you heard? For 7 cents a day, you can feed an indie podcast host. Support the show on Patreon for behind-the-scenes content, bonus episodes, Discord benefits, and the ability to brag at parties about donating to the arts. Join now at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. You're in the arms of the angel.